What's up, guys? Welcome back to this series called Nutrition is King and Fad Diets Are Lame. We're going to be going into calories today. The whole entire video is going to be comprised of just talking about calories. What are calories? How can calories help us pursue our goals and get to our goals, and get us the results that we want, and all that jazz. So by the end of this video, my hope and my prayer is that you guys will get enough value that you can learn enough about calories that you can get your results, whether you want to lose weight, you want to gain weight, you just simply want the knowledge, or you want to maintain your body weight. Whatever it is, you're going to learn more about calories and how to figure out how to track your calories, how to get calculate your calories so that, again, you can be going in the right direction. This is going to be really key, really important. This is the first step towards figuring out what type of diet you need, developing a correct diet. And I know I said fad diets are lame, but I'm just saying diet in general, just like your overall food regimens, right? The things that you eat. I'm not saying I'm giving you a diet at the end of this call or the end of this video. I'm just simply saying that you'll learn how to eat better. Again, so let's get into it, guys. The first pillar of nutrition. So calories, again, as if you watched my previous video that goes over, it's the overview of all the videos I'm going to be doing the next couple of weeks. Calories are 50% of your physique results. Whether you want to gain weight, lose weight, or maintain calories will dictate a large portion of your results. It says down here, if we were to define what a calorie is, it would be, and this is the scientific jargon, a unit of measurement for energy, right? So that does a lot for you, but the key word here is energy. Let's get into that. Why is energy important? Why do we need to view it as energy? And again, like I said, let's skip the scientific jargon. I don't want you guys to focus so much on, the science behind it, because it's not really relevant to you. If you want to learn more about it, then take a class on it, take a college course on it. But why is it important? We need to talk about calories and define it, but we have to also reshape the way we think about calories. Calories aren't bad. I know a lot of females, especially, they think of calories as like this evil thing, this bad thing that we had to have less of it to look good. To a degree, that's true, but also that's the wrong way of thinking about it. Calories are not bad. They are not good. They aren't a moral compass. They're simply a tool, right? Tools can be used foolishly and they can be used wisely. The operative word I want to emphasize to you guys in the definition for calories, again, is energy. It's performance. That's the key word there, energy and performance. Therefore, calories give us the energy to perform in life. The consumption of calories gives us the ability to perform basic functions, from sitting down to running a marathon, to completing a complex mathematical equation, to even you unconsciously firing neurons in your brain to help you watch this very YouTube. So say, and let's dig into this a little bit deeper now. So say our maintenance in calories to stay the same weight, maintain our daily activities, and function like a normal human being is 2,100 calories. What were to happen if we started eating below that by 300 calories, 300 calorie deficit? Would our body just stop breathing? Will we not be able to function? No. Our body is more resilient than that, and we have adapted over time through the evolutionary concept of adaptation, that doesn't happen when we have less calories than what we need. Our bodies have the ability to function still in a deficit in calories. All it does is it first pulls from fat stores in the body, and usually once that begins to diminish, our bodies then start breaking down the amino acids in our body, which usually is muscle mass. And this is a side note, especially muscles that have just been formed within a few months. So this is, I'm just gonna talk about this real quickly, and then we'll talk about why I think BCAAs are garbage, unless you just want the taste of it. This is the problem with yo-yo dieting. I know, especially younger guys, and shoot, I even see it amongst people that are in their 30s to 50s and beyond. When with their diets, they go into a bulk and they put on some good size, albeit a lot of it's too much size, and they don't realize that their body can, after a certain amount of years of training, you can only put on so much size. So they put on a good amount of fat weight, and then they also put on some muscle mass. But then they go directly into a cut. They're like, oh, I put on some size, great. Then they go into a cut. The problem with this is that your body needs time to make that muscle its own. And there's some science behind that. I'm not going to get into it, but I know the facts behind the matter is that if you just put on muscle mass, and then after just putting on some of that size, you go directly into a cut, you're going to lose a good portion of that size. Now, if you're on enhancement drugs, that's a different story. I don't know myself because I've never played with enhancement drugs, but when it comes to switching up your diet so quickly, you need to give your body some time to adapt and to sustain, get used to sustaining that muscle mass, that new muscle mass that you just recently built. So you want to keep that muscle mass for quite a while, and maybe lower your calories to maybe a maintenance, and then stay there, hover there for a little bit, let those muscles set in. Then when you go into a cut, there will be more likelihood of you keeping all those new muscles and you losing it suddenly. So for me, example, my last bodybuilding show was 3 years ago. I just looked at it recently. I thought it was 2022. It was 2021. Me being a natural bodybuilder, I'm 29, going on 30 this year. I know it takes a long time. So I bulked for 2.5 years, and now I've been cutting slowly for the last couple of months. Not couple, but more than that. But for a while now, I've been slowly cutting for a while now. Now I'm digging deeper because we're in the last couple of weeks of my bodybuilding cut. But you need to spend time in a deficit and then spend time in a bulk and then keep that muscle and then go into a cut. So I say when you're in a bulk, I would spend at least 6 months in it. And if you can, go longer. So if you heard what I said, 2021 was my last show. I spent almost 3 years bulking, guys. It wasn't like I was a big chubby dude. I still had semblance of a six-pack, but I put on a good amount of size. I went from 89 on stage, which is super lean for me, being 6 foot tall, to then being 230 pounds for a while. Where I naturally hold is 200. So I was about 20. I was well over 20 pounds in my bulk, and I stayed there for a while, and I slowly cut down to 220, and I slowly cut down to 215, maintained there for a little bit, and then now I'm in I'm 204 right now. So just a side tangent. All right, and then another side note. That is why I usually tell my clients that BCAAs are really useless unless you're in a severe deficit in calories and have already depleted a good portion of your fat stores. So when you're in a deep cut, again, the first thing that happens is your body uses fat as its energy source. When that starts to diminish and activity remains high, then your protein sources start getting attacked. So that's why it's good to have a really high protein allotment during a cut. And we'll talk more about that in the macro section. But if you don't have a high enough protein count, when you don't have high enough protein in your diet, then it's going to start attacking your muscles. It's going to break down your muscles for energy, for performance, right? All right. So otherwise, if you use it when you're in a maintenance surplus, it gets wasted. So if you don't, if you have BCAAs when you're just in maintenance or you're in a surplus, you're literally wasting your time because you have a plethora of amino acids running through your veins. You don't need any extra unless you just like the taste of it, then go for it. But otherwise, you're wasting your money. All right. Surplus. And speaking of being a surplus, the exact opposite happens when you're in a quote unquote bulk. Anything above maintenance calories is essentially a bulk, as long as you're not training in such a way that it would burn enough calories to then place you back into maintenance or deficit. But if you're approximately 200-300 calories above your maintenance in calories, this is where you'll make gains. So this is what you want to do if you want to put on size. We just talked about if you want to lose weight, this is what you need to do if you want to put on size. I wouldn't recommend putting on more. I wouldn't recommend going up more than 200-300 calories unless you're somebody that is a hard gainer. There is such a thing as hard gainers out there. I had a client that was 5'8", 5'7", weighed 165 pounds, was not a newbie lifter. He has been training for years and training hard as he can. And I had him at 4,000 calories, and at 165 pounds for months, eating anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000 calories, he didn't gain weight. Albeit it was hard for him to get 4,000 calories. He often did not get to 4,000, but even for someone at his height and body weight, 3,000 calories should be enough. It should be enough, but if he just had 3,000 calories, he'd either maintain weight or sometimes he would lose weight. So there's hard gainers out there that do need more than the rest of us, but for the most of us, we need to stick to just a 200-300 calorie surplus and just stay around there unless you really want to put on some size. And a lot of it, again, is going to be fat weight. But if your sport needs some fat weight around your tissues, then there might be some reasons to put on more size that's a little bit more on the heavier, on the fat side than the muscle side. But that's the only other time. If you're a powerlifter, if you're a strength trainer, if you're a strong man, you're somebody that might want to put a little bit more tissue, a little bit more fat tissue around your joints. But that's the only time I'd recommend that. Okay, so your gains will be comprised of muscle tissue and fat tissue, like we've been talking about, and that's not a no-brainer to anyone, I'm sure, that's listening to this video. And depending on how effective your training routine is, sleep, genetics, and overall diet, you have a chance of gaining maybe a 1-to-2 or 1.5 ratio of muscle to fat weight. But again, this is very hard to do, and only with everything locked into place in your diet, training, sleep, stress, and genetics can you see results like this. And of course, training experience also applies if you're lucky, you can expect huge results within the first 1 to 2 years of effective training and dieting. Then everything begins to slow. So that's why I always ask people, like, where are you in your training experience? Are you your first year? Your first year, you could put a good amount of size. And so let me quote something from the book where a lot of this information is pulled from. So if you're interested, it's Diet 2.0 by Renaissance Periodization. It's a great book. I've been going through it. It's not a hard read. And it's comprised of a bunch of dietitians, doctors that know what they're talking about. They're not a bunch of gym bros, I promise. And it's got a cool little foreword from Rich Froning, which is one of our fittest men alive in the world that competed in the CrossFit Games. Diet 2.0, from which a lot of this information is pulled from here, so I already talked about that. Let me give you guys a quote. So this will give you a better understanding of what all this means and how putting on size doesn't mean you're going to put on a whole lot of muscle mass. Muscle growth rates are much smaller than fat gain rates. This is again a side effect of our evolution. Muscle mass is metabolically costly. It requires more energy to build and maintain than fat mass. Thus, the body sees adding extra muscles as a survival disadvantage under most circumstances. Only when there is a pressing need, increasingly difficult weight-bearing tasks, progressive overload, and a steady hypercaloric condition will any significant muscle mass be gained, and even then to a lesser extent than fat. It is not uncommon for people to lose 15 pounds of fat in 3 months, very true, in a hypocaloric condition, but gaining 15 pounds of muscle in the same time frame under hypercaloric conditions is virtually impossible. But I hear this all the time. People say, I'll talk about that in a second. In fact, 15 pounds would be an impressive amount of muscle build even in 1 year of training, in your first year of training. So is that impossible? No, you have good genetics. There are people that blow up after. And again, that's when everything locked in with good genetics. You can put on 15 to 20, even more pounds of muscle in your first year of training, but it's not common. It's extremely rare, and it's just usually like I said, it's virtually impossible to do that. Especially putting on 15 pounds in 3 months. That's only possible if you're running a whole bunch of gear. And like I said, I don't have a lot of experience in it, but I've seen it. I've seen it in reality where people put on a whole lot of size in a couple of months. That's only due to PEDs. So after all is said and done, how do we figure out how many calories we need to consume on a daily basis? Because of what's the point of this conversation? We don't know how to do it for ourselves, right? Use these super easy calorie equations. You got the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation, you got the revised Harris-Benedict equation, and you got the Katch-McCurdle formula. And all this, you look here, the key on the right, where is W is body weight in kilograms, H is body height in centimeters, A is age, and F is body fat in percentage. Looks a little confusing, right? Well, bear with me. These are all time-tested equations. They all work really well, and they're really not that hard to use. But if you wanted something simpler, that's not as confusing for those that are not math whizzes, I just use this one simple website. So obviously, just kidding, go to calculator.net instead. Calculator.net takes all three of those equations and takes the rough estimation of all three of those equations and plugs into this formula here, and it gives you a really good rough guide of how much calories you should be consuming. And it talks about age, gender, height, weight, and then activity. And then some history for you for those of you guys who want to know what each one of these equations stand for and what time period they came out of. Let's get into it. This calorie calculator is based on several equations, and the results of the calculator are based on estimated average. So like I said, it takes all the equations and it gives you an estimated average. The Harris-Benedict equation was one of the earliest equations used to calculate basal metabolic rate, BMR, which is the amount of energy expended per day at rest. It was revised in 1984 to be more accurate and was used up until 1990 when the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation was introduced. The Mifflin-St. Jeor equation also calculates BMR and has been shown to be more accurate than the revised Harris-Benedict equation. the McCardle formula, excuse me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, by no means do I pronounce everything correctly. It's slightly different in that it calculates resting daily energy expenditure, RDEE, which takes lean body mass into account, something that neither the Mifflin-St. Jeor nor the Harris-Benedict equation do. Of these equations, the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation is considered the most accurate equation for calculating BMR, with the exception that the McCardle formula can be more accurate for people who are leaner and know their body fat percentage. The three equations used below are listed below, so I showed you already what they look like. You can go back to the next, a couple seconds ago to look at those equations if you really want to use them for your own use. So guys, my advice to you, use the calorie calculator on calculator.net. Be very honest with how active you are. This is something as a coach, I have to take subjective approaches to, because some people will sometimes lie through their teeth and tell me that they're really active when they're not. I know that they have a desk job and they only walk a little bit and they don't get up from the desk often, and then they probably burn no more active calories than maybe 200 calories actively, maybe a little bit more, but still it's not a lot, right? So be very honest with how active you are. And on the website itself, it gives you a little key at the very bottom that says what active it looks like, what very active looks like, and what extremely active looks like. So you can be a little bit more honest with yourself. But the reason why I'm saying you have to be honest with yourself is that if you aren't, it's going to give you far more calories than you need, or it's going to give you far less calories than you need. So the more honest you are, the more accurate that guide will be. And then the next thing you need to do is track your calories using whatever tracking app you prefer. So it doesn't matter what tracking app you prefer, just track your calories, track everything you've been eating. Don't worry about the macros yet, just focus on the calories, figure out what your calories are from that calorie calculator, and then use that as a rough guide and stick to that as best as you can. Try not to deviate too much from those calories. And if your goal is to lose weight, stick to that deficit. If your goal is to gain weight, stick to that surplus. If your goal is to maintain weight, stick to that maintenance calories. And for the next couple of weeks, I would suggest at least for a month, keep on tracking. And then by the end of the day, so it's here, my last piece of advice, you track consistently, do weekly weight check-ins. If you do this for a whole month, say you do this for a month or 2 months, you should see your weight fluctuate. And if you're in a deficit and the calories you've been using are in a deficit and you've been continually losing about a pound or two or more, then you found more or less your maintenance, and you found out how much weight you need to, how much calories you need to consume to be in a deficit to lose body weight. And if your goal is to put on size, then if you've been sticking to it consistently, you should be roughly putting on about a pound. I wouldn't recommend doing 2 to 3 pounds a week. That's crazy. I would go slower and do 0.5 pounds. That'd be my suggestion to you. Another suggestion to you would be during a bulk, do 0.5 pounds a week, or even less. Maybe just like a pound a month if you're trying to really do it slow and steady, and make sure that you're putting on muscle, a 1-to-1 ratio of fat to muscle. Or even better, but that takes a lot of time and a lot of patience and a lot of consistency. But you got to do those weekly check-ins, be honest with yourself, and be consistent. Be integral, be consistent. So that's it for the calories, guys. I'm pretty sure there's no more slides here. Yep, we're all done. So the next video is going to be talking about macros. So we only talked about calories today, but the next video is going to be talking about macros. We're going to be talking about the different type of macro breakdowns we need, the different macro ratios we need between fats, carbs, and protein that we all need for our different lifestyles, or different, depending on your performance, depending on your goals and fitness, the macros would look differently for each person individually. So without anything else to be said, I hope you had a great time watching this video. I hope you learned something, and I pray that God blesses you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.